Celsius is a billion-dollar company that told its customers to unbank yourself with crypto. But
Amen.
then
I
last
remember
year,
that.
they declared bankruptcy and sold a new shirt.
I remember that too.
Unbankrupt yourself. Now, at the time, I reported on extreme incompetence, but stopped short of using the F word, fraud, because we just didn't have all the evidence.
Until
but today,
now.
that changes because of thousands
Awesome.
of pages of new court documents, Celsius insiders talking, and my personal interviews with victims. Make no mistake, this was a gigantic fraud. People's lives have been ruined, and the founder might get away with it. So to help shine a light on this issue, here is my full investigation.
That's just kind of the whole
lender,
crypto space. Even if it is blatant fraud, the founder just literally might get away with it because it's crypto. Sad reality of it.
Celsius.
Thanks the resub, Kringle, and the Prime Blue, the resub Klutz. The bits Cardi sleep well.
So when
Probably
we're
not
talking about
crazy.
taking back power, it's really not even from the government. It's really from corporations that dominate our lives. And that system, right, does not work for 95% of the people on the planet.
Why? Because the banks control all the money in the world. We talk about all the money in the world.
What Celsius does is really helps people navigate in a safe way into this environment. So when you use a Celsius wallet, you know, okay, I'm going to earn yield and I'm going to stay safe in a safe environment.
Sign me the fuck up.
Celsius already did the homework and figured out what's safe.
Normally we trust people that
I always love that. Hey, don't think too hard, we'll tell you what's safe. That always makes me feel good. Whenever someone says some shit like that, it's like, I know that there is some shady shit afoot. No, trust us, trust us. We looked into it ourselves and we've determined these are what's safe.
we think are acting in our best interest. But what if these people are not acting in our best interest? What if their interest is exactly the
Kenny
opposite
and the
of ours?
Prime Mad.
Should we continue giving them our money, or should we take the money and put it somewhere else?
To understand Celsius and how they got 30 billion in assets, you first have to understand what they were selling. It wasn't just a place to borrow or lend money. It was more than that. It was a battle against the evil banks, and their CEO, Alex Mashinsky, was here to level the playing field.
Banks are not your friend.
But Alex is your friend?
Yes. So I have a lot of my own money in the company, several $100 million as well. I'm talking about as a user of the service, not as a equity shareholder. So basically everybody came in and said, hey, can I take the same ride on the same bus with you? You're earning 8.8%. Can I earn it? And the answer is yes. You get exactly the same. You have $100 or $1,000 or $1 million, you earn the same yield as everybody else.
And this pitch was really attractive.
Man,
not to mention,
he's just
Celsius
like us.
offered 8% on your money at a time when your bank probably offered less than 1%. Mashinsky said this is part of how he was battling the banks.
We basically thought, okay, how many people in the world want to earn more money on their money, yield? And we
Nobody.
said 8
No one
billion
wants that.
people are going to say, of course, I want to earn more money on my money. So the customer was there. The second part was, we can take on the banks and win. Why? Because 8 billion people are going to join you. And that was really the key to make that decision. Then we went and presented it to 200 venture companies, and they all said, nope, you're not going to win against the banks. So we went to the community. We actually went to the community, said, we're going to build this for you. Do you want it? And we raised $50 million from the community. And then we went and raised $400 million from investors after we showed them, hey, 1.5 million people showed up.
God, that's so
30
sad
billion
knowing how
in
this story
assets,
plays
they've
out.
given us 30 billion.
Fuck,
Proven
Jesus.
that people will send somebody money to manage or digital assets to manage. And that was really a breakthrough. No one has done that in 700 years of banking. There hasn't been anyone who actually taken on the banks in the real way.
And this clearly worked. Celsius customers told me that the reason they switched was just to get a higher yield on their money.
Honestly, I was looking for a place to stake and earn interest and earn yield on my crypto.
I was actually first in crypto.com, and then I saw Celsius on YouTube. It had higher yields and everything, so I kind of moved my stuff from crypto.com to Celsius.
People were writing about Alex Mashinsky and all the messaging on the website. You know, he's an entrepreneur.
Hold on, I wanted to read that. Why trust Celsius? What was the old pitch? That's pretty quick. I imagine it went on for much further.
On the website, you know, he's an entrepreneur that had created all these companies and he didn't need the money. You know, this was billed as a high yield savings account.
Once again, he just said something that is the nail in the coffin for so many people. He already had so much money, he didn't need the money. AKA, this guy's already rich, surely he wouldn't scam me. That is one of the most fucking common threads in the, not only the crypto space, I guess, in general. This perception of they're so wealthy they wouldn't need to scam, thus they would never take advantage of us. And then every time, like clockwork, shit like this happens. It was the same story for fucking CryptoZoo with Logan Paul, for example. Like, it is... I don't know how much longer that perception's going to last, but hopefully it's done pretty soon, because goddamn, that is the undoing of so many people.
That was outside the traditional financial.
Sure, oh yeah, true. Surely by default, these people are better than the banks because everyone hates banks. It was a very smart angle. It really was. I think banks are a very easy one. Like, hey, we don't like banks, so don't bank with them. And unbank yourself and come to Celsius. It's very appealing, especially with like an 8.8 interest rate and all that. Like, it's no surprise it took off. It's not shocking. And no, I don't know what that is, Carp.
Systems.
Now look, of course, in hindsight,
Is there some
maybe
ZC?
these high interest rates should have been obvious red flags, but at the time, because of other crypto projects, things didn't seem so crazy.
There was also others that were much, much bigger and much higher. You know, look at Luna and stuff like that. So
Oh, it's crazy. It's all connected. Terra Luna, this is Do Kwon's project. This was at a point the third largest traded crypto, and this went to actual less than zero, costing normal, average people billions of dollars. They lost everything. It is wild how it all just circles back around in the space, man. I think Do Kwon's still on the FBI's most wanted list unless he got caught or turned himself in, or I don't really know the status of that, but for a little while he was like a legitimate fucking fugitive from the law.
Luna and stuff like that. So in comparison, it didn't seem as crazy at the time.
But it wasn't just the competitors who convinced people, it was Mashinsky himself, who gave a really compelling argument that banks were lending out your money and keeping most of the profit for themselves, and he was going to do something different.
And we're paying fees upon fees upon fees. They charge us $24, 24% per year to basically borrow money on our credit card. They charge us 24%, but they pay us 0.1%. So where is all that profit going to, right? It's going to the toll collectors. So the opportunity is really for all of us to, again, go off this toll highway road and go into a new world where we don't pay any tolls, we don't pay any fees, we act in our best interest.
And this is the vision that most people bought into. Alex was going to lend out your money and pass most of the profits back to you. 80%, in fact.
And that was the argument that was repeatedly said. I remember them talking about how 80% of their profits were returned to users as a reward. And so that's what I thought I was doing. I thought I was loaning money to someone that had posted enough collateral to pay back in the event of a default.
We then lend it to the institution. The institution.
I mean, it's not stupid. Like, the people that bought into it aren't stupid for it.
$700 million of interest from the institution and distribute most of that. 80% of that went to the retail users.
80% of whatever we collected. Celsians next to you are benefiting because we are lending the collateral you gave us, redistributing 80% of that income with all the other Celsians. So it's a win-win-win.
Now, of course, if that's not enough to convince you, Celsius also said that in addition to making high yield, they were extremely conservative. They told customers that there was collateral backing up all their loans in case of a disaster. And the key thing to understand here is that this secured loan with collateral is much less risky than unsecured loans where there is no collateral. And ultimately, Celsius said because of this, a bank run wouldn't affect them.
And every day, we have a process, the daily reconciliation process, where our team, like 20 or 25 people, get on a call and grind through all the tokens and all the coins and make sure that we have more coins than what we owe the community, right? That's our process. And no bank in the world can do that for you because they never have enough assets to return for you if there is a run on the bank.
And these promises of safety and collateralization were key to people actually putting their money in with Celsius.
When I deposited my money in Celsius, I thought their primary business model was over-collateralized lending. I thought they would deposit more assets than they borrowed money on the platform and they'd pay interest to pay a return. And so that way I said, hey, I'm not going to lose my money because all the loans are over-collateralized and I'm able to earn a yield.
And look, all of this...
like this guy, that guy in particular, clearly had like a fundamental understanding of it and buying into the vision. But like, if one of the main things is I probably won't lose my money because of this, it's like, that's not like a super strong reason to get into it. If like, I probably won't lose all my money here. But then again, I'm just super jaded on crypto entirely. That's how finance works. I mean, I don't think anyone ever puts money into the bank and being like, well, hopefully I don't lose all this money by it being in the bank. That doesn't typically happen. I'm not saying it's impossible or anything, but that's not typically what happens. I'm no fan of banks either. But to go to, like, goofball crypto to try and replace it is very risky. Do bank robberies not happen? Brother, if your bank got robbed right now and you lost a lot of money, that shit is insured. You would get that money back. So even if fucking Wile E. Coyote and the Dirty Boys came out and they stole from your bank and you lost money in that robbery, you are getting that money back. It's insured. Whereas if it happened in crypto, where, like, let's use an example, Axie Infinity, which is a crypto game, they got hacked for 600 mil. Hacked, I imagine there's probably some shady shit at play there where they just took 600 mil off the table, called it a hack. Don't know for sure, but that'd be my guess. You don't get that back. That's just gone. That's just straight up fucking gone.
Sounds great. And so far we've been establishing why people were so excited about Celsius in the first place. So if that was the case, then what's the problem? Well, the problem was Celsius went bankrupt. And not everything was as it seemed. Let's go back to the studio.
Crypto lender went from managing billions in assets to filing for bankruptcy in just a matter of months.
CNBC obtained dozens of internal
Can't
documents
believe
that
it.
in part show disorganization. Prices drop, and the industry faces a liquidity crunch.
The collapse of Celsius came as a huge surprise to anyone listening to Alex Mashinsky. All the way up to shutting down, he had claimed that Celsius had billions of dollars in liquidity, just ready for withdrawals.
We have billions of dollars in liquidity. So anyone who wants to withdraw, that's a service. You can withdraw at any time.
So what happened? If that was true, why did it fall apart? Well, the picture wasn't clear at the time. We heard allegations from people like Dirty Bubble Media that Alex Mashinsky was selling his own tokens. We also found out that Alex withdrew money off of Celsius before it shut down. But at this point, we didn't fully understand why Celsius had collapsed. Was it just incompetence or greed? These were open questions until a few weeks ago, because that's when the court-appointed examiner released her 600-page report detailing exactly what happened with Celsius. In this massive report, the examiner details not only systemic lying, a Ponzi-like scheme, but also tells us what I think constitutes fraud. Here's a breakdown of the report, starting with the biggest lie of all: the interest you'd get on depositing your crypto. You see, for years, Celsius had been telling people they paid what they did because it was 80% of their profits they were earning from all these loans.
And we're very proud as well to pay out over 80% of our revenues directly back to the community. And so this is something that we are going to continue to do. And we look very carefully at all of our numbers on both sides to make sure that we are doing that. And that's also what is helping us decide the rates every single week that we're paying out on coins.
You gotta take a better look at those numbers then,
According
actually.
to the report, Celsius did not distribute up to 80% of its revenues to its customers because it had little to no profits to even distribute. Celsius also made no efforts to set its reward rates based on its yield. And look, I know what you're thinking. If they didn't set the rewards based on what they actually were making as a company, what did they set them based on? Well, on getting more customers. And according to the report, Celsius consistently set its reward rates based on what they perceived was necessary to beat the competition. And for most of Celsius's existence, the rewards it paid exceeded by substantial amounts the revenues Celsius could earn. So for those of you following along, the whole idea that we're paying 80% of what we make was a total fabrication. Celsius just wanted more customers, which, as you might imagine, works when you're bringing on more assets with new users than you're paying in interest. But eventually, when you have billions of dollars in assets,
Seems like textbook
you have to
fraud
pay
to me,
rewards
then.
based on that.
Already.
And the Celsius team realized they had a problem. But even as some within Celsius management attempted to lower reward rates, Mashinsky, quote, overrode their recommendations and refused to do so.
No, not
One example
Mashinsky.
of
That
this
guy is a
was when
golden
Jason
saint.
Perman, a Celsius executive, recalled Mashinsky saying that Celsius could not cut its reward rates because of his belief that our customers will leave us. And that, quote, our investors didn't invest in us to shrink, they invested in us to double. So with this new understanding that they weren't going to be able to lower reward
chef
rates,
and hydration
they realized
that
they were
funk.
stuck with the other strategy,
Fire.
trying to raise what they were
Mid
able
shadow.
to make with their assets by employing riskier investment strategies to try to get closer to profitability. And guess what? They lied about this too. Even as the company started to make riskier investments, like offering unsecured loans, Mashinsky told people the opposite. He said everything was business as usual.
Celsius is very, very strict at who we lend to, right? So we only lend to the first tier institutions, first tier exchanges. We do not do all kind of unsecured lending like a lot of people are talking about or saying Celsius does unsecured. We do not do unsecured lending.
But of course, this wasn't
Prove
true.
it.
Celsius internally had been talking about the number of unsecured loans they were giving out increasing, shown here in orange. And internally on Slack, executives were furious. Quote, I just told him that the number is increasing and the overall ratio of collateral with institutions is going down. Another
sounds
figure
like it was-
responded, yes.
This is interesting. It sounds like it was actually mainly Mashinsky that sank this whole fucking company. I thought it was going to be like a collaborative, fraudulent effort, but it really looks like most people identified Mashinsky as the problem point. He was the one that was like overriding decisions and going buck wild on it. At least so far, I guess, with these 2 points. Thanks to the resub, Real Pine. Give sub dash. If anyone looked at the actual interest rate, they'd know that 8% is impossible when lending to credible firms. I'm not super familiar with that, but it does sound like outrageously high. Like unrealistically high, but I'm not knowledgeable enough. Maybe that was reasonable to think it was possible.
So why does he publish so dangerous statements? Everyone out there, if you have an unsecured loan, tell everyone that I'm a liar. But in the end, no one did call him a liar, even as he literally asked for it.
Here, I'm calling on anyone who received an unsecured loan, go on Twitter and make fun out of Alex Mashinsky. Say, hey, I took a loan, here's my loan number. You know, I took a loan from Celsius and then I did not have to provide at least 200% collateral.
And through the next year, Mashinsky continued to boast about how safe Celsius was, even as the team began to engage in riskier behavior. In the same year, Celsius would recognize $800 million in losses from some of these investments. Mashinsky told the Financial Times in June 2021 this.
From a risk standpoint, we are probably one of the least risky businesses that regulators worldwide have ever seen.
How does that not immediately trip people's red flags? That would sound alarm bells for me if I was considering like investing or putting money into something and I heard someone say this, like the CEO. I'd be like, yep, no fucking shot. Any company worth its salt, any legitimate organization doesn't usually boast so proudly about things like that. Usually it's like action speaking louder than words. So you'd be able to find information on whether or not this company or whatever is trustworthy. You wouldn't need to get it from the horse's mouth here. Oh, we're actually considered one of the least risky businesses the regulators worldwide have ever seen, like in the history of the world. They've actually given us like 5,000 gold stars for how safe we are. Like, it's actually nuts. They can't stop praising how safe and legit we are. Regulators love us. True. Yeah. But it seems to be his whole MO. He would just go on to like podcasts, make public appearances or whatever, all just like, hey, we're super safe. Everyone knows we're super safe. We're not risky. This and that. Meanwhile, half the shit that they were preaching was literally just a lie, I guess. They used AI for his voice. Oh, man. Yeah, they were just a little too soon. You could say it was all deep faked. Will he go to jail? I don't know. I haven't finished the video yet. Coffee said there's a good chance he gets away with it.
Around the time he was saying this, Celsius was over $500 million underwater on their liabilities, as shown by the black line, which represents a net surplus. By the end of the year 2021, Celsius would owe $1 billion that they did not have. Things were looking bad.
Wait a minute. I thought you said this was a fraud.
It is a fraud.
Maybe to you, Coffee. There's another way of looking at this.
What do you mean?
Well, imagine I'm defending Celsius as a lawyer.
You're a mixologist and a lawyer?
Hey, I could pass the bar if I wanted to. I already work at one. But anyways, what I would say if you were coming at my client is, look,
I feel like the CG's
all this
improving.
lying and losing money, standard fake it till you make it stuff. They could have become profitable eventually. Now, did they fail? Yes. But trying a business and failing, that's the American dream, Coffee.
Do you actually believe that, though?
Doesn't matter what I believe. If a single person on that jury was an entrepreneur, Alex would walk.
Well, either way, your hypothetical doesn't even matter. Mashinsky isn't even being criminally charged.
Wait, really? Well, I rest my case then.
Yeah, nice try. But it's not that simple. They're still suing him for some of the money. He's just not being criminally charged.
Thanks, War
And
Pig
let me
and Bunny.
guess, you don't think that's enough?
No, I don't think it's enough. I mean, it's a slap on the wrist. It's a financial speeding ticket for a guy who ruined so many people's lives.
But that's my point, Coffee. If you think it's so wrong, you gotta give me more than this.
But how? You said it yourself. They're just gonna claim incompetence. They faked it till they didn't make it.
Isn't that... I could be wrong. Isn't that in and of itself a big no-no in the, like, as an actual mega corporation? You can't fake anything. That's like a crucial point. It has to be all above board and legitimate. Isn't that... Am I off my rocker? You can't just like fudge your information and lie. Not to like investors, which I mean technically the people were. You have to prove it at some point or people will find out. Well, right. Well, eventually what happened is, I mean, you know the story. They went bankrupt. Everyone lost their ass on it. Like that's, we know how it ends. But isn't that like criminal if it's openly faked? Like, they were lying about the claims, right? They lied about the interest, they lied about the 80%, whatever, a lot of lies. Isn't that in and of itself already a legal problem? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about how the regulation would work on a company of this scale or anything, so couldn't tell you, but I feel like that the whole like incompetence because they were faking it till they made it doesn't really work. I feel like that would still be like a legal problem, but maybe not. I don't know.
That's because the evidence so far is lies and incompetence. You need to show a definitive step across that line. That's the only way people are going to believe you. Well, that and...
What?
Well, this might be ironic coming from me, but it wouldn't hurt to humanize the story a bit. Don't get stuck in the technical jargon. Nobody can follow that. Make me feel something.
As much as it pains me to say this, I think you might be right. Let me see what I can do.
What does that money mean to me? It means a lot, actually. I've been working...
Well, yeah, I imagine. Yeah, it was a lot of money.
I was investing this my first couple of jobs out of college.
Ultimately stopped us from buying a house because, I mean, it was half of our down payment was locked and, you know, I couldn't get it. So
it was a big impact, actually. KQ.
Honestly, that loss was a culmination of many years of work, to be quite frank. I saw it as my way to escape.
What that money means to me, it's a lot more freedom with what we're able to do as a family.
To describe what the money I lost meant to me is really hard because it's tied into a lot of what it feels like to be a grown-up or an adult. I feel like I have this stunted development. You know, I'm almost 40 at this point, and I'm very aware as a stuntman that wants to be physical. If we have a kid last year like we wanted, all right, maybe by the time he's 20, I could show him some stuff. But the longer we wait, the more I watch my dreams and my future and my hope to be like a proper functioning adult slip through my fingers. It's hard to describe what that's tied into, but it just feels like I can't proceed with life, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. And hearing these stories made me realize just showing lies isn't enough. If I'm going to demonstrate fraud, I need to get to the heart of Celsius. And that's when I found out about the flywheel. The flywheel was central to Celsius's plan to become profitable, and here's how it worked. Celsius was not just a crypto platform. They also had a crypto token called Cell, and they controlled the vast majority of it, up to 95%. So
hold on, I want to take a quick guess here. I'm going to imagine this is a pretty close to FTX situation where it turns out that they were reinvesting, and I'll use the term very loosely, their Cell tokens. You mentioned that they had the lion's share. I imagine that instead of securing those loans or the investments or anything like that, they would instead take their Cell and put it elsewhere to try and generate money off that on the back end, is my guess.
If the price of Cell went up, theoretically, the balance sheet of Celsius would also go up, and they could sustain these insane reward rates. However, in order to do so, they needed people to actually want Cell token. So the flywheel was Mashinsky's plan to do that, to create a positive feedback loop. And the way they did this was set up Cell token like a rewards program, where you could earn bonus interest if you held a certain amount of Cell, which obviously incentivizes people who wanted to get the most out of their accounts to buy these Cell tokens. On their website, they described this process as a self-sustaining ecosystem where users would buy Cell, earn more yield, get more crypto, collect interest, earn more yield, lend more coins, collect more interest, and buy more Cell tokens. Now, of course, you might notice a problem here. What if people actually go to sell their Cell tokens? Wouldn't that crash the price? Well, Mashinsky had an answer for this too. He told the community that Celsius would buy Cell tokens in order to pay their rewards, theoretically creating demand out of thin air. Here's him explaining this.
Basically, more visitors usually translates to more app downloads, and that translates to more deposits. More deposit allows us to do more loans. More loans generate more income, and more income means more income that Celsius generates from these coins that people gave us, translates into us having to buy more Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cell token, and so on.
So, okay, that's the flywheel. Why does it matter? Well, the flywheel and this Cell token became the place where all sorts of shenanigans happened with Celsius, because while the community was aware that they were buying back Cell to pay rewards, what they didn't know was that Celsius was using customer funds to do so, to buy their own coins. What they imagined they were doing was that they were using all this profit they were theoretically generating from making these loans to buy their own token, but that wasn't the case. This was because, as we said earlier, Celsius wasn't really profitable at all. So the only money they had to buy Cell token was their own customers' money. But it gets even worse, because starting in 2020, Celsius decided to substantially expand its purchases of Cell for the purpose of increasing Cell's price. Instead of buying Cell when it needed to pay rewards, Celsius began timing its purchases so that they would prop up Cell's price by creating activity in the market. Now, of course, the question is here, why would Celsius go beyond its mandate to purchase more Cell than necessary and artificially boost the price? Well, perhaps it has something to do with the top holder of Celsius being Mashinsky and his executives. And this was the only way they could sell some of these tokens without crashing the price. According to the investigation, quote, between 2018 and June 2022, Mr. Mashinsky sold at least 25 million Cell tokens, realizing at least $68.7 million on these sales. Daniel Leon, also a founder of Celsius, sold at least 2.6 million in Cell
surely that's good for the good of the platform.
$9.74 million as well. That's a cash out of over $70 million, while Celsius was buying these sales to prevent the price from going down. Quote, Celsius often increased the size of its resting orders to buy all of the Cell that Mr. Mashinsky and his other companies were selling. The former chief financial officer would write, we are talking about becoming a regulated entity, and we are doing something possibly illegal and definitely not compliant. Some employees, of course, were even more direct. Quote, if anyone found out about our position and how much our founders took in USD, could be a very bad look. We are using users' USDC to pay for employees' worthless Cell. And even worse, in 2022, their coin deployment specialist described their practices of buying up Cell and using customer coins as very Ponzi-like.
That seems like a dagger. I was a little off on my prediction. It's even fucking stupider. Well, I guess not stupid because they made out with like 70 mil, but it's even shittier. Sucks for the investors. Well, yeah, it sucks for any normal person using the platform. Great for the people at the top, though, who are just literally selling worthless Cell using the customer funds. So they're selling this useless shit using customers' real money to purchase it in order to keep the price stable. So I just don't see how there was ever any potential argument to make that they were trying to become profitable. Because there's like no legitimate effort. This isn't a sustainable thing. This is like cash out for the top level people. This is make a lot of money off of garbage. And already a lot of their claims were blatant lies. Like I just don't even see what the actual full-blown scheme was. Well, I mean, I see what the scheme was. They made a lot of money, but like how there'd even be an argument that like, they were eventually going to be profitable. They just failed along the way due to incompetence or whatever.
And a few weeks later, when this person was asked where money was coming from to buy Cell, this person would say, users like always. This, ladies and gentlemen, is the core story. Not merely lying, it's a story of using customer funds to buy out your executives and manipulate your own cryptocurrency so you can sell for a higher price. In fact, Celsius's own purchases of their own tokens were such a large component of the market that overlaying the price of Celsius with the amount that Celsius was buying results in a near perfect match of the price change. And ultimately what this meant for the end user is that the money they thought were being used for safe loans or for generating yield were actually squandered on this flywheel mechanism. And the result was that Celsius just didn't have the money to pay customers back. And what's so wild about this is that Celsius didn't even need to buy their own Cell token in the first place. They already controlled 95% of all the Cell tokens in existence, so they could have just paid rewards from that instead of buying Cell on the open market. When asked why they did it this way, one executive responded that the answer lies in who holds the most Cell. In other words, buying Cell on the open market was what propped up the price, which benefited no one more than Alex Mashinsky, who executives would refer to as the biggest seller by far and depressing the market, selling up to $165,000 a day. As a result of all these actions, by the time Celsius would pause withdrawals, they had a shortfall of over $7 billion owed to customers, which after a crypto crash was more like $4 to $5 billion. Either way, hundreds of thousands of lives were ruined. And this, in my view, is where Celsius crossed the bright red line.
I feel like they've already done that.
An incompetent lender, they had created a scheme with Cell token where new users' funds had to be used to prop up Cell token value, which benefited their executives. It also created a need to use new customer funds to pay out old customers because of their impossibly high rates of rewards to fuel growth. According to the Examiner, this all meant that Celsius Network on a standalone basis has been insolvent since inception. This meant that new users always had to keep on coming in to keep Mashinsky's flywheel going. And when they stopped coming, it was doomed to collapse. This is the textbook definition of of a Ponzi scheme, where new users' deposits are required to pay old users' withdrawals. And according to the Examiner, this actually happened explicitly multiple times. One example is from June 2022, when Celsius relied on $33.4 million of USDC of new customer deposits to fund withdrawals of old customers, which Celsius couldn't afford. And this, unfortunately, is the
So how do you
real story
defend
of
it?
Celsius, a Ponzi scheme designed as a way to take on the banks and fight for the little guy. But hey, don't take it from me. I'm just a third party. Take it from the victims themselves. I asked them what they thought.
So this was an absolute fraud from the
Thanks,
beginning.
Resub,
I mean,
Gavin,
it turns out that a
Blue,
lot of these
Cat,
businesses
and
that
Prime
they claimed to
Frosty,
be
and
propping up
PC.
Celsius were
The
completely
Resub we
fraudulent.
like, and
From what
Guppy.
I've seen from the Examiner, more and more it looks like it was just a textbook case of a Ponzi scheme.
I don't care if it was a Ponzi scheme from the very beginning or the very end. It still was a Ponzi scheme.
It doesn't matter if he meant to start a Ponzi scheme, right? But the second you got into those circumstances, it becomes fraud.
They're basically losing money from the very start of the company, and they're literally lying in front of everyone's faces saying, yeah, oh, it's totally fine. Yeah, you could totally keep our money in here. Yeah, I would totally invest more if I could. As they're currently at that same time withdrawing funds as they're literally on camera lying to everyone's faces.
He made a lot of egregious claims on his Twitter, on his websites, on his podcasts he would do, claiming if Celsius ever went bankrupt, all the customers would get all of their funds back. You know, there's tweets of him saying that.
Oh, his
And
Twitter's
as a
locked?
CEO of a company, you would take that word
Coward.
at face value. You would believe him when he says that your coins are going to come back to you. And now that everything's coming to light and showing that essentially what he was running is a Ponzi, I do believe he should face jail time, and the people that were also involved with it that were enabling that behavior.
There needs to be an example set, or we're going to see more of these grifters in this space, like Sam Bankman-Fried and others who just take advantage of people who believe in the technology, who believe in innovation. And you're not supposed to steal people's money, just plain and simple. You know, it's called theft. It's a Ponzi scheme.
Just being stripped of all of your wealth like that. Emotional, psychological torture. You ruined people's
Thanks, Reese.
lives, Alex. You
Fridge.
ruined their lives, man.
I've seen
A
so
bit
many
shadow.
people who are retired. I've seen people who are disabled. I saw people who are basically in like different types of countries that their average salary might be $100 a month and they lost $1,000 and they don't even know how to feed their families. I've seen people who are literally on the verge of being homeless, if not homeless already. And you see this CEO who is gloating about this and taking money out. I think without a doubt, if like the justice system prevails, Alex should be in jail.
Well,
Well, you'd
that's
think
our
so.
story. I reached out to Alex Mashinsky about these allegations, and he declined to comment, except to say I should talk to a Celsius employee named to clear up the FUD. Now, I talked to this employee, but they declined to go on the record themselves, and when asked if anyone within Celsius wanted to speak with me, I was told nobody is willing to go on the record with you. So that's where we're going to leave that. And as for Celsius, the company, they're trying to reopen their doors.
What?
They have a new plan to basically distribute whatever's left back to the holders and lawyers. And I'm not going to go too much into the details of this plan, but if you're a creditor, you can visit this page to learn more. It's not a perfect plan by any means, but I'm not sure I have any better ideas of what to do with such a bad situation. So that's it for me for now. I hope the wait was worth it, guys, for
Interesting.
this video. We're trying to level up the production behind the scenes. So if you enjoy all the in-depth investigations, please consider supporting us
Thanks,
on
Prime Davey.
Patreon. These videos are a lot of work to produce. But either way, I'll see you in the next one.
Good shit, Coffee.